My name is Kelsey Stanton. Two of you already know me, so nice to meet you. And I'm in the Career Center here at Wenatchee Hall. I also teach geology, so you'll see me around for all those things. You can always come over to the Career Center anytime you need help with resumes, cover letters, interviews, anything else. But today we're going to talk about cover letter writing and how to get a cover letter started and hopefully today for some of you applying for jobs, completed a cover letter that will really make sure your resume gets noticed. So I've given you a couple handouts. One of them is just a job search checklist that we created at the Career Center. It gives you some ideas of things to think about. Probably since you folks are all in some kind of educational program at the moment, you've probably done step 1 and 2, but you might look it over. But this helps you think a little bit about the process as you get ready to go search for a job. I also gave you a really quick handout with a cover letter outline to reference. And then I gave you a packet of all of these slides, and there's lots of space to write notes on there, because I'll ask you to do some note writing as you go. So if you have any questions, please just ask as we move along here. So cover letters. The purpose of a cover letter is to persuade the employer to actually look more carefully at your resume. And it also adds voice and context to your experience. So your resume is a fact sheet of what you did, where you did it, how long you were there. And your cover letter allows you to explain that a little more fully, allows you to show the employer that you have some communication skills. And it also, hopefully, if it's a well-written one, causes you to really stand out amongst everyone else. A lot of people write one sentence cover letters, or perhaps a form cover letter that they use the same one every single time. So if you have a well-written cover letter, it's really going to make you stand out from everybody else, and your resume will hopefully be set aside for an interview. There are some specific things the cover letter needs. It is a formal letter, so it needs to have a structure of a formal letter, and there's a specific structure for formal letters. It also needs to have your contact information. Your contact information is on your resume, but it also needs to be on your cover letter in a couple different spots. You're trying to make it as easy as possible for the employer to give you a call or email you so you could come in and do an interview. So if you give them a phone number that you don't use, or if you don't have your voicemail set up, please use another phone number or set up your voicemail. You want them to call you and actually be able to get in touch with you. But you will have your contact information on your cover letter. It also needs to be personalized regarding the employer. So who is receiving the applications? What is the specific job? In other words, you don't want this to be a form letter. And what I mean by form letter is that you have one letter and you send it out to everybody. A form letter would be, Dear Sir or Madam, and every other part of it is the same. You don't want it to be a form letter. It needs to be personalized. These days, a lot of companies have you email in your resume and cover letter, or sometimes do a cover letter and resume attached to a formal application. And in those cases, you still would want to complete your formal letter. Your email would be your cover letter body, and then you would attach this formal letter as a PDF as well. The reason you would do that is so the employer could print off your formal letter and your resume, give it to all the people who are involved in the interviewing, and they don't have to worry about an email memo style. It doesn't look quite as nice. So you still are going to write a formal letter in all cases, even if you end up emailing it. Okay, there are 3 paragraphs in addition to your heading for a cover letter. So your heading is going to be your address and the address of the employer. You're going to have a first paragraph, and we're going to go over all these parts, so this is just kind of the review. First paragraph, which lets the employer know why you're writing, which position you're applying for. Paragraph 2 is where you convince the employer that your training and experience makes you perfect for the job. So you're going to use examples or describe the kind of work that you have done that relates to the job position you're applying for. And then finally, paragraph 3, you mention any soft or transferable skills. So the soft skills, the transferable skills are the things that you are good at that you possibly haven't had training for, but you've learned how to do it over the years. So whether that's leadership skills, management skills, communication skills, attention to detail, all of those things are your soft transferable skills. You can mention those in paragraph 3. It's also where you wrap up the letter and ask them to give you a call. So there's a very specific structure to your cover letter. One of the things that you want to focus on for your resume and also for your cover letter is using active voice. So you want to use very dynamic, active wording to show what your experience is. So you don't want to have passive, I have had this job, or my duties were. You want to use very active voice. So instead of I was able to cut the time necessary, just jump right to the point there. I cut the time necessary. Okay? So along the way, think about using active voice. Sometimes it's tricky. This is why it's always handy to have someone edit your cover letter, and I can come around and help. But all the time, think about using good active voice, as many verbs as you can. So first of all, we're going to write a mock cover letter, or in the case, if you have a job to apply for, you'll be writing a cover letter for that. Regardless, your cover letter needs to be written to the exact kind of job that you have in mind. So whether you're going to use it this time or later on, you have a mock cover letter or a basis from which to personalize all your other cover letters. Presumably, whatever you're going to school for is the kind of job that you want to do. And once you have one job description in that field, most other job descriptions are going to be very similar. And you have this basis letter that then you can do a few changes to make it personalized. You don't want it to be generic. You want it to be personalized because people reading the cover letter are going to be able to tell whether you have a generic form letter or whether you've actually taken the time to look over the job description and make sure that the letter fits. So at the moment, if you have, oops, I put it on there. Well, what are you training to do, or what do you want to be? Hopefully you already know that. Hopefully you know what job position you are going to be applying for. So if you don't have a job description already, let's spend the next few minutes looking for a job description of the exact kind of job you want. It doesn't have to be in this area. It could just be an example of a job description. Use an actual job description. Don't go to one of the websites that just describes whatever you want to do, what those people do. Find an actual job description. So spend a few minutes finding that. Read through the job description and make notes or jot down somewhere the qualifications are in the job description for which you have specific training or experience. And if you can, write down some details about your experience. So in other words, numbers talk. If you could give details about your experience or your education, then you'll want to write those, add them onto your notes. Because what you're trying to do is write a cover letter so that as they're reading the cover letter, the employer is going to say, wow, this person is exactly a match to my job description. You don't ever mention the job description, but you want to make them feel like you are a perfect match for their job description. And you want to use numbers because numbers indicate to the person who's reading it that you're not just making it up or exaggerating, you're actually giving some details. Also, write down a few notes about specific times that you used a necessary skill. You might not actually use that information in your cover letter at the moment, but it's nice to write it down because when you do get called in for an interview, you already have some examples in mind. Guarantee they're going to ask you about examples when you've done such and such, or can you describe a time when you did so-and-so, whatever it is, they are going to want examples. So as you're reading through that job description, write notes about your skills, and also just give yourself some hints about experiences, direct times you did that, so you can remember it later. And I've given you space down here at the bottom, or you could just print off that job description and write all over it. That works really well. I think the printer up here works, so you can print off job description, write all over it, highlight it. You also might want to write down some of your transferable skills, your soft skills. So if you have been in a leadership or management position where you were in charge of other people, trying to get them to do things, maybe in charge of hiring, whatever it is, if you have some other soft skills that you feel are relevant, you also want to write those down. Please open a Word document, and we're going to start with a letter. So you want to have your heading. If you already have a heading for your resume and you could get it in so it matches, you can use a heading for yourself, your address. If you don't want to use the same one as your resume, you don't need to. You want to have your name and address, then the date you send the letter, and then the heading for the corporation or business to which you're sending the letter. This actually is sometimes trickier than it looks, because finding the information about where to send the letter, especially if they're asking for you to fill out an application online, it can be tricky to figure out who you're sending it to and where it's going. But you want to do this because this is aspects of a formal letter. Sometimes it will be in the job description, but if you're requested to email the information or submit it on the application, you might have to search around on their website. In fact, you might even have to call the organization and say, I'm applying, I'd like to apply for this job. Could you tell me who will be receiving all the resumes and cover letters? And if they're able to tell you, they'll give you a name. Sometimes I have to tell you, you'll even strike out on that, especially if you're in a large organization like Confluence Health. They may tell you, oh, it changes every time. We have no idea who's going to be looking at them this time. And then you have to resort to the old to whom it may concern, or human resources at such and such corporation. Always use that as your last resort. Try and figure out who it is, because you're trying to personalize the letter to them. But don't feel like that's just going to kill the letter if you have to do it that way. So right now, write down the address, complete this heading for the job that you'd like to apply for, or the job description that you have. Because remember, this can be your mock cover letter, the one that you use as your basis, and then every time you want to do a new one, you could just go in, save as, and change that information. All right, so you guys are working on your headings at the moment, not only your heading with your address information, but also the heading of the letter, which has the information for the person you're applying to. So while you're at it, also go with paragraph 1 here. This is going to be Dear So-and-so, which you've hopefully looked around and tried to figure out who you're writing to. I'm writing in regard to the position of such and such that was posted in Wenatchee World, or on Craigslist, or on your website, or that I saw on the job board, or that I was told about by so-and-so. So wherever you learned about this job and found the job description, let them know. This is important because, first of all, it lets them know which job you're applying for. Some organizations have a whole bunch of jobs open, and if you just send in your resume and your cover letter and you don't tell them which job you want, they're going to toss it because they're not going to take the time to look through your resume and figure out which job you want. So let them know which position you are applying for and where you found it. Please find my resume attached. Always let them know that you've attached the resume. If they also have asked for your list of references, sometimes your job description will say, please send in your resume and 3 references. Then you also want to mention that. Please find my resume and my references attached. Sometimes they'll want even more information. A copy of such and such certification. Anything they want, you tell them, please find my resume and yada, yada, yada attached. After carefully reading your job description, so this is where you tell them that your experience or your education or a combination of your experience and education makes you a really great candidate for this job, or makes me very excited because I feel that this job is exactly what I'm looking for, and I feel I'd be a great candidate for it. However you want to put it in your words, right? You're going to tell them that your experience and your education, or one or the other, is making you perfect for that position. Paragraph 2, this is where you're going to persuade the employer that you have the skills necessary to do the job. So this is where you're going to use examples from your training, from any of your previous experience, from a combination of the two, from any clinicals that you do, any of those things. You are going to reference that in paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 is going to be your longest paragraph, and you might not be able to address every single thing in the job description, because if you did that, you might have a 12-page long cover letter. I've seen some job descriptions that are very, very specific, but you can address many of the main points, or what you feel are the most crucial points toward the job that you're applying for. So my experience working as a such and such make me uniquely qualified for this position. You'll want to put it in your own words. You can use my phrasing if you like, but you want to make sure it sounds like you, so when you go in for the interview, they don't wonder why you write differently than you speak. And then you start adding your examples. This is where it's going to take a lot of word crafting. You want to try and use an active voice. Use details as much as you can. So if part of the job means that you need to be managing people and you've done that in the past, you'll mention that I managed a team of 13. Or I have been in charge of a network of such and such size. So you want to use details as much as possible, because this is where they're going to look back and say, by golly, this person matches the job description. Maybe they haven't even worked specifically in this field yet, but all the things that they've done really lend toward them being able to do this job. So just let paragraph 1 flow right into paragraph 2 here. Okay, I know you guys are sort of in the midst of crafting paragraph 2. I'm just going to describe paragraph 3 and maybe some of the do's and don'ts, so you can move on from there. We've got a whole nother hour, but I kind of want to get the whole part of it wrapped up so that then you can start writing and I can start editing, helping you guys out. Paragraph 3 is what makes you stand out. Your organizational skills, your self-motivation, Your communication skills, which is funny because my communication skills didn't catch that I didn't use the correct word there. But be creative. Think about what you've done in the past. Why are you uniquely perfect for this position? What are the things they're not going to have to train you how to do? It's really hard to train a leader. It's really hard to train somebody to be organized if they aren't. So what are you good at? This is where you would go along the lines of my experience helped me develop such and such skill as well as such and such skill. And these are what ensure that I will be a great addition to your company, asset to your team, some other phrase that has your voice. So you want to use your voice. Again, you don't want to use words or phrases that you wouldn't naturally say so that when you have an interview, they're not going to wonder about the discrepancy. And then let them know that you look forward to discussing your capabilities further. And write down your phone number once more. I know your telephone and email are already at the top, and on your resume, put it here, and then also put it under your name. You want to make it really easy for them to find you and contact you. Once you have a letter, read it aloud. Believe me, the best way to catch stuff like I just did is to read your paper or whatever you have, read it out loud. You're going to hear where it doesn't sound right or where it's unclear, maybe where it doesn't flow quite so well. So read your letter aloud. Make sure that your punctuation and capitalization are correct, and if you aren't sure, ask someone to help. Okay? You may be excellent at your job, and it would be horribly, horribly embarrassing for you not to use correct punctuation or capitalization and screw up your whole cover letter. And then ask someone else to read your cover letter. Sometimes we're so good at typing things out, thinking about it in our brain, and we don't always write as clearly as we think. So it's great to have somebody else read your cover letter, try and catch all your editing mistakes, and let you know where you maybe need to change some wording. I'm happy to do this with you guys now. When you're actually applying for a job, you can bring it over and I'll go over it. But even as you move on away from the college, just make it a habit of asking somebody, hey, can you look at this cover letter and make sure that it sounds right? So if you have a friend or a family member that can do that. You have to write a cover letter for every job you're applying for. So having kind of a master cover letter, kind of like a master resume, and then being able to take portions of that cover letter and personalize it is probably going to be your best bet. Since a lot of the jobs that you're going to be applying for are going to have similar job descriptions, once you have that initial cover letter, that master cover letter, you could do a lot of cut and pasting. You still want to make sure it's personalized and that you're reading over that new job description. But you could do a lot of cut and pasting. Always take the time to try and figure out who is receiving those. And if you can't figure it out, then you can do human resources or to whom it may concern. But do take the effort. People get really excited about getting a letter to them. It's just in our nature. So if you could figure out how to personalize it to that point, the person doing the hiring is going to be much more excited that you took the time to figure out who they are. There's some do's and don'ts here. Do not get off topic or tell your life story. You don't need to tell them about your hobbies unless your hobbies are directly related to the job that you're applying for. Don't have to tell them about your family. In fact, those aren't even things that you need to talk about in an interview. So don't tell them your whole story and get too broadly off topic. Remember, you want your cover letter to be one page. Don't want it to be above that unless you're applying for something like president of a university or whatever it is. You can have a longer cover letter. But for almost everything in life, we all have just one-page cover letters. Don't get so bogged down it turns into a book. Keep it to a page. Pay attention to your grammar, your syntax, your spelling, and your punctuation. And have somebody else look that over too. edit your cover letter and then have somebody else edit your cover letter. And every time you make changes, have them look it over. So make sure you're ready to have them give it a good edit so that they're ready to give their input, and then you could send it out. And then always personalize it. So with that, we will just work at it. We've got a whole nother hour in here. We don't have to take all that time, so work on a little bit, and when you're ready, you can take off. But I'll be here to help.